Hello, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get started in a few minutes. I'm just going to give everyone a few seconds to jump on. All right. Okay. Thank you all for joining us today for our second exclusive VIP growth workshop. We hope that you guys are all enjoying and finding value in these workshops. Today, we will be discussing the idea that price is no object and how to avoid bargaining and charge based on value. So first, I would like to introduce our presenters for today. So Lee, go ahead.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about price. It's an issue that we hear often from some of our customers, and we're just trying to share some insights on, kind of high-level issues on things you can do differently, and then give you some resources to look at some more psychology-driven price analysis and things like that. So we're excited to talk about this today.
Hello, everyone. This is Katie Smith, your customer success ambassador here at CountingWorks Pro, and I am also excited to be talking about this topic. I am here to support you with your marketing system here at CountingWorks Pro.
Hello, this is Steve Anderson. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager here at CountingWorks, and I'm very excited about this topic as well because it seems like this is something that needs to be addressed, and we're happy to bring on some value to it.
And I'm Alexa Myers. I am the marketing manager here, so let's get started. So today we will be diving into some topics about pricing and how to deal with price resistance from customers. So price resistance is a commonly occurring issue during the process of selling your services. And unfortunately, negotiating is one of the most important stages of the sales cycle, but it's also what a lot of professionals struggle with. So today, our experts will be sharing 9 ways to ensure that price negotiations will work in your favor. And we'll also share some tips on dealing with price resistance from your prospects. And overall, we hope that you guys come away with some practical next steps that you can apply to your own practice right away. And a little bit about this workshop. So based on some feedback in the time of the year, this month we will be hosting this 30-minute workshop. So there will be no CPE credit for this workshop. So there will also be no polling questions. But we will have a Q&A at the end. So be sure to submit your questions in the Q&A section. We will try our best to address them towards the end.
All right, let's get started then. So the intro, and I think this is kind of a common experience, and I'll just read it, but I think everyone can relate to this. Have you ever come across another competitor, another CPA, an enrolled agent, a bookkeeper who is charging tens of thousands of dollars more for a service you essentially give away for free? We find this as a very frustrating feeling, and you look at your peers and how are they making more money than you? Maybe they're even working less than you. What is the secret they have figured out to provide their services at higher prices? So when there's such a large discrepancy in price between two practices, it makes you wonder, what is their secret? So we've identified 9 ways to change price negotiation to be in your favor. So dealing with price resistance, and I'm going to give some common, what I call common savvy salespeople responses to some price resistance. And these are things that you may read in books, but I hear you, the best products and services are often more expensive. How much will it cost you to do nothing? Okay, so which part don't you want? What's the ROI you're looking to see? When's the last time you bought something based on price alone? So these are different techniques that savvy salespeople use when countering or seeing price resistance. And as an accountant or a CPA, you're not a salesperson per se, but you are a trusted advisor. You speak with confidence, and you can sell your product or service based on those attributes, right? So, we say, spoiler alert, everyone deals with resistance from clients on price. The old rule back when we were running our own tax practice was, if about 10% of your clients are pushing back, your pricing is probably getting close to where it should be. When you get to that 10% or so, that's probably where you're at the ideal point, right? So haggling with clients until you're barely turning a profit is not the way to be successful. And we're going to teach some techniques today that kind of talk about ways not to haggle, but more negotiate, right? So it's important to keep in mind that price is rarely the only issue when your practice is facing resistance. There's a lot of different issues. There's emotional issues that you need to take into effect and address through your price negotiation. So the overall goal of selling your services should be focused on the value you offer and to make it so that price is not an object. So number one, do your research. And when we say this is not everyone is going after kind of everybody, right? So a lot of people are focusing on different verticals, and different types of clients have different needs, right? So what is the value that you are trying to communicate to your client, right? So if it's a niche, there might be certain things that, by using your services, they may be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it becomes a time spent versus money saved type of analysis. And you should know your niche markets inside and out and cater your marketing and lead generation efforts to those potential clients. So make sure you're using terminology that they would recognize. Use images throughout your sales process that kind of speak to them. So if you're going after contractors, you're using contractor images, you're speaking to situations and things that they see in their general lives, their everyday lives. And these are the ways that you're going to help resolve this issue, right? So number one thing you do is definitely do your research on your target audience. Make sure that your talking points are in line with who they are. So one size doesn't fit all here, and you'll be much more effective if you can communicate that directly to each user. So number two, negotiations with prospects. So make sure you have covered all their concerns and objections. And I'm going to introduce Katie to kind of jump in here. She has a lot of experience on how she has done this with other companies, not just CountingWorks Pro, and I think it's very valuable information. But being prepared, having responsive to the common concerns and objections where you're very quick to come back, I think is a huge tool when you're negotiating. Develop a clear understanding of the value you can offer them. So again, don't just speak bullet points of the services you're providing. Speak about the solution. How am I going to make your life better? So again, pricing becomes an emotional undertaking. So giving people a clear picture of how you will make their lives better, how you will make them more financially sound, how you can save them time so they can grow other parts of their business, how you can protect them from risk and making mistakes. Those are the kind of things where the value that you provide can be communicated. Who are the likely competitors that will be earning the business, and find out what they charge. So get a general understanding of the landscape there, and just decide ahead of time what terms will be acceptable at a minimum in order to keep yourself profitable. So Katie, I'm just going to roll this over to you and kind of add some insight here.
Yeah, of course. There's a joke in the office because everybody knows me as the over-preparer of the group, but it's simply because I like to know all the possible outcomes of any situation to put me in the best position possible. And that's really what I coach our clients to do as well. Just as Lee said, be really prepared for any concerns or objections that might come your way. In addition to that, you also have to think about your potential client. They don't know what they don't know. So helping them understand, finding a middle ground with you too, to work together, as well as finding a win-win. I think if you put yourself in the shoes of the potential client that you are about to embark on a relationship with and do business with, if you help them understand your process and you understand and listen to where they're coming from, you will see that you'll develop a partnership and not so much a business transaction. So as Lee said, listening is key. Show your value over talking about price is always huge. And then just listen to each other and you'll find a win-win.
So I just want to add to this. When you were at House, you guys actually developed an objection list that it was kind of the talking, almost like a political campaign. These are the talking points. This is, if you hear this objection, here is the clear response. And you made it a company-wide kind of a response tool, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And again, going back to they don't know what they don't know, sometimes you're educating them. It's not so much an objection, they just don't know. So having responses prepared, everyone across the team or across the partners of the firm will just help your brand be that much stronger and more credible.
All right, well, thank you. So I think that's a good lead in for this side, and let's go into some more options here. So offer solutions to business problems. And again, this is speaking, and we see this often when we're developing copy, is a lot of times our customers want to throw as many designations they have. And yes, that's great to show some social proof and kind of background of who you are. But the idea is that your reviews are speaking for you, the quality of your website, the blog, the content, your social media profiles, these are already building up your reputation, right? So hopefully by the time they are speaking with you, they're more into, okay, what is the solution to my actual business problem? Not I'm coming to get my bookkeeping or getting bill pay services. The problem I have is I don't have enough time in the day, or I make mistakes, or I put it off and I don't pay bills it's too late or whatever. So what I'm saying is explain the solutions that your practice creates so that your prospects will focus on the value you offer versus listing service points. That is kind of the nitty gritty of what you're doing, but it's not really the problem that you're solving. So don't assume you know all the prospect's pain points. I think you'd be interested to find out if you surveyed some of your clients on some of the areas that they may have concerns on or challenges they face in everyday life. There might be some more opportunities there for you. I think the HR side, dealing with payroll, compliance, a lot of people have remote employees now, multi-state issues. There's a lot of things that you might be able to add to your service just by asking, right? So you may not always know every pain point that your prospect has experienced. So it's a good thing to ask. When you have a definitive idea of the challenges they're facing, you can design your solutions appropriately, right? So this is where we were talking about creating solutions around the problems that your prospect is seeing versus, again, just listing a bunch of services. And by doing this, now you're taking it from a transaction to kind of the value pricing. What we're talking about is really saying, these are, if I can save you X, and by working with me, and this is my process, would that be of interest to you? That is a much better conversation than, well, I help you reconcile your whatever, right? So I think it's something that you got to kind of start looking into and digging into as you go. So that brings us into the value selling. We keep saying value, 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 but value on its own doesn't have to be an ambiguous idea. You can put a price on the amount of value you offer your clients. So some people do this in tax planning now. They say, well, if you use me and I can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars because I understand certain elements of Section 199A or whatever better than someone else, if the perception is they can, they're more likely to get more money through tax planning appointments and things. And you're starting to see a wave of professionals that are doing that now. So value is the difference between the price you charge and the benefits the customer perceives they will get, right? So that's a very important part of this equation. So the more you pivot the conversation to help your prospects focus on the value of your services, the less important price will become. And as we go through some examples here in a little bit, what you're going to see is if you can reframe the service's value, so meaning it's easier to evaluate how much you're getting out of a $84 a month subscription, for example, than a $1,000 a year subscription, even though they're actually about the same cost. So what I'm getting at is use talking points that look at and make it less friction in this discussion. So it's something that's very important as you go through this. So avoid comparison. This is the big issue that everybody faces. And I'm going to have Steve jump in here and kind of talk about this. But, the tax and accounting services are not a commodity if it's properly positioned, right? So therefore, you cannot be compared apples to apples. And I'm going to have some more insight on this as we go, but there is no one-to-one comparison of two practices. There's different professionals, different expertise, different offerings, different solutions, right? So you might specialize in something and have some knowledge that others don't, right? They have to research it. They might not even find the answers, but if you're specialized in a particular area, it's much easier now to differentiate yourself from someone who is not a specialist per se. But I'm going to ask Steve actually to jump in here and kind of talk about how you deal with the comparison shoppers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lee. I do think this is a huge topic right now because of the value that some people are bringing. I think a lot of it has to do with asking questions, kind of speaking to what their needs are, but bring confidence into your conversation, what you're valued and what you're worth. I think the other one is just be personable, but be valuable. Understand that there's a need on their side. You have an answer to what they need, but you still can be personable, but also have that confidence. Don't you bring something to the table that someone else doesn't. And that's one of the things that you have to be confident with. I think we'll go into more details down the road there, but just understand that, bring that to the table when you're coming to the conversation, and then ask questions about what their needs are, like you were mentioning before, like HR and other additional features. You don't want to have to negotiate with it, but you want to be able to bring that solution to the table for them.
All right, thank you. And I'll add some talking points. Basically, the responses can be, hey, you don't want to choose our firm because we are the cheapest price, right? We are not and never will be, but we offer a premium solution to premium businesses, right? So we're looking for the best of the best, and we're going to help bring your business to new heights and profits. So kind of speak about the results, the long-term benefits of working with you, and it totally takes it away from the conversation of package A versus package A. No, I'm going to now change the conversation more to, well, we do not want to be the cheapest, we never will be, but working with us, these are the type of results that are typical with our clients, and then kind of change the conversation to a different one. And guess what? That leads into focus on outcomes, right? And this is kind of the talking points I was just bringing up or alluding to is, ambiguity is uncomfortable for most people, right? So it makes sense for someone you've never worked with before to be wary of spending their hard-earned money on your services. So you don't want to necessarily say, trust me, and while you should never offer guarantees to these concerns, you can use hypotheticals and examples. We love case studies to shape a story and uncover the true source of objections, right? So if you can provide kind of that outcome, what do you want to accomplish by working with me? So I want to grow my business 25% a year for the next 3 years. I want to save on my taxes. I always feel I'm overpaying. I'm not really following proper tax planning. Perhaps I could every other year I should do some bunching, some other strategies, whatever it is. If you can get into the outcomes, again, we've taken the conversation off of the actual quote unquote bullet points of the service. So these are just things that help, again, change the conversation, make it into, again, pricing is an emotional thing, but make it into more aspirational. I think you'll be more successful. So here's an example. You're working with our firm could save you $100,000 from effective long-term tax and financial planning. Would it be worth a $10,000 investment? Well, obviously, I would save $90,000, right? So what I'm getting at is we've now taken this to the value that you're providing or the end result, that outcome. So in the reality, any objections they had was never really about price. It was about their confidence in your ability to deliver that outcome, right? So now that you have a better idea of where the hesitation lies, you can take a better approach to effectively sell your services. So and again, we know we're not saying a tax pro should promise a certain tax refund or any of that. We're just saying, kind of share, these are the things, these are results that I've seen from other clients, and kind of back up what you're trying to sell them. And I think this is better in a business point of view than tax. It can be used in tax. We have some clients that are doing some really high-end tax planning programs for more high net worth people. But in the small business accounting, medium-sized accounting businesses, there's a ton of ways to do this. So, teach them about profit first. How can I help you create a budget you can actually live with? And by doing this, I'm going to show you a 12-month forecast, a 24-month forecast, where you're actually going to be versus flying by the seat of your pants. So those are ways that you can actually say and communicate, how this will work for them. So number 7, we did the last workshop on packaging. We are seeing many clients be very successful with packaging. I do have a resource at the end of this that will kind of talk about different pricing techniques. So meaning they've done research on how you compare services, how, using the number 9, different pricing models, comparing, how many choices you should give. And it's one of the things that people talk about is anchoring. So the best way to sell a $2,000 service is to put it right next to a $4,000 service. The answer is, well, why? The culprit is a common cognitive bias called anchoring. So anchoring refers to the tendency to rely heavily on the first piece of information offered when making decisions. And a lot of times you get people who just want to always pay the highest price. They feel like, if I'm paying the highest price, I'm getting a quality service, I'm getting a quality product, I will get a better outcome. By not enabling your firm to be able to do this, you're, in some ways handcuffing the ability for you to charge more money. So when it gets into the packaging side, and again, go back to our last webcast if you missed it, we get into much more details, but packaging is essentially turning a set of your services into a tangible product. So now I can look and choose, and it's kind of like the In-N-Out Burger approach. We limit choices. It helps combat analysis paralysis, as too many options can be demotivating. And again, I call it the In-N-Out Burger. So it's always crazy. You go to In-N-Out Burger if you're in our area in the West Coast, or even in Texas now, they're all over the place. But any restaurant that has kind of a very streamlined menu And you go in, there's lines out the building, and across the street is Taco Bell with 1,000 different options, or Carl's Jr., there's no one there. And the reality is people like it. It's simple. I don't have to make a bunch of choices. I don't have to decide what I'm going to do. I'm like, boom, 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 I'm in and out of there. And it is a part of the psychology in the buying process. So it's something to think about. So packaging makes it easier for the client to wrap their head around and see the value you can provide. So you've already taken the conversation off the price, and they're more talking about which package is right for me, right? So that's an element, and it's fully transparent. So there's not the risk and friction of saying, oh my, they're charging me hourly. I feel like I'm dealing with a lawyer. I want to keep my phone calls short. I'm not going to provide as much insight. I might not even provide as much questions to you because I'm worried about what that bill will be. This says, hey, in this package, you get X, and feel comfortable, we're partnering here. And that's something that really helps. So when you use packages as opposed to other methods like hourly pricing, clients know exactly what they will pay. So the transparency often leads to less price sensitivity. So meaning they will actually spend more with you because they know what they're getting, right? Since you remove the ambiguity from the equation. So I think this is an important element. If you have not tried pricing or package services, it's definitely something to maybe test, and you could do very small tests and see what works best for you. So understand proper negotiating. So sometimes your price is simply outside the realistic budget of a prospect, right? So you want to define that pretty quickly. You don't want to be wasting your time either. But there's other clients who they're willing to spend more, they just don't know it yet, if that makes sense. So this does not mean you should start decreasing your ask price with no other changes. And this is where it comes to the whole bargaining versus haggling and negotiating. So meaning if somebody's price, let's say you're trying to charge $1,000 a month for a service, but they're only willing to pay $800, you don't bring the price down to $800 with the same set of services. You're saying, well, you know what? Yeah, we can bring our price down to $800, but we are not going to do X, Y, and Z. And this is where now, yeah, you're negotiating. Your margin's still going to be fine because you're not doing those other three services, but you're not being haggled to death, and you're not giving away margin. I think that's an important element that everyone should use. You should not discount your fee just to get a price, a lower price when you know that the amount of work and time that goes in that. Just move on to another client. And a lot of pros are starting to do that more and more. They're just focusing on the super high end, the wealthier, the clients who are growing the best and giving them, all out effort. So that is definitely something that's happening in the trend right now. So the prospect seems invested in working with you, but insists they cannot afford your price, then you consider negotiations, right? And this is where you bring down the price, but limit the amount of services that are there. So I just kind of got into this, the difference between negotiating and bargaining, but we'll read some kind of definitions. So bargaining is about focusing on who is right. It is competitive and win-lose, right? Negotiation is about focusing on what is right. It is a cooperative and a win-win. So it's something where your partnership, you kind of agree and get to a point where you're both going to be happy, right? So in the context we're discussing, negotiating is when you make adjustments in terms, conditions, and scope of work between two parties. While bargaining is when you are asked to do the same work as you have proposed for less money. We recommend don't do that. And you're going to start, I bet you everyone now probably has 3 or 4 clients they can think of where you bend, and we do it too. We have clients that push the envelope of the program that they're in, and you try to bend over backwards from a customer service point of view. But the reality is they don't value your time. They don't value the service that you're providing, and they're taking advantage of you, right? So at some point you have to say no, because it's not unfair for the rest of your client base, and it's unfair to you and your time. So I think this is an important element to think about, and it's a strategy you can use, on the next negotiation that you have. So let's lead into to improve your negotiating. Start working on developing these important skills and habits. And I'm going to let Katie first, and then Steve jump in here. But I'm just going to read the bullet points, and they're going to give some feedback on the way they're dealing with this. So clearly defining concessions, speaking second, and we're going to talk about silence. And that means you're listening, right? Steering clear of ranges. Refusing to split the difference. That's kind of a common negotiating technique. You see it on all these real estate shows, and sometimes you sit there and go, whoa, that's not always a win-win for the person actually selling, right? So it's definitely something you need to think about. Writing terms at the right time, speaking with the decision maker. Nothing worse than going through a sales process and the person you're actually working with can't even make the decision or sign the contract. Talking more than money, being human, and then of course the best one, which is hard, knowing when to walk away. So, Katie, why don't you jump in here and then lead Steven?
Sure. So I think negotiations, this has kind of been the theme of the entire workshop, is really by seeing it as a mutual success and not a winner versus loser situation. Again, going back to the mindset of finding a win-win. So planning ahead, being prepared with what you're willing to budge on is huge. So you know where you can maybe cut costs here or stay firm on your terms. So knowing where you can budge. But also I would say the most important thing is stay neutral. They may say something that might offend you, but it's important to not take it personally. And usually at this point, the relationship is probably established with you and this potential client. So you know they're interested in your services. This is a great opportunity for you to show them your listening skills and professionalism to make it work for the both of you. Steve, what do you have to add to that?
No, I do agree with you. You already have, at this point, you have already kind of built a rapport. But you come into the table of being confident in what you're going to provide, asking questions, understanding their needs, but then understanding as an expert stuff that they might not know they need, but you can see that, and being able to ask those questions, being able to, with a lot of this stuff, and speaking to the decision maker, being able to adjust things, but you don't give, you're giving a value to what you're going to be receiving. And I mean, we can go down the list on what's available, but every one of them has talking points regards to, what you're going to bring to the table. But the biggest one, I think Lee kind of put the head on, is afraid of loss. Knowing when to walk away because it's not going to hit your value set. And that's always a tough one, I think, in this industry.
I was just going to add, Steve, totally unrelated, but one of the hardest negotiations I had, not in this industry, but it's a good example. I was trying to buy a property that I wanted to build a new house on, and the adversary, so to speak, that I was negotiating with face to face was just hardcore. These are my terms, using really strong language. And, it got to the point where I'm like, I really wanted it. I really wanted this property. It was kind of where I was going to build my dream home, so to speak. And I decided, hey, I got to walk away. And I walked away for 6 weeks, never circled back. 1 week before the end of the year, right at Christmas, I get a call from the seller saying, let's do a deal at your terms. And then I rolled them back a little bit more down from the terms I had originally, and then bought the property. But walking away doesn't mean you're not necessarily going to get the deal. It's a totally different, unrelated story, but I wanted to share it anyway. So let's move on here.
Sounds good.
When in doubt, use silence. And this is something we brought up, but many times simply being quiet is one of the most important skills for dealing with price resistance, right? So you've presented your terms and your prospect is thinking, don't undermine yourself by jumping in and breaking the silence. So kind of sit back and allow the prospect then to jump back into the conversation again. This also indicates that you have confidence in your service and the price you're proposing. Sometimes you'll see people, say, hey, I don't know if our service is right for everybody. This is what we do. These are the values and the results we offer. We know we're not the cheapest product. It's the same type of thing. But silence is another, believe it or not, negotiating tactic. So, pause. Little silence might work, and let them talk a little bit more, and they might undermine their own position. So I think number 9 is a very good point. If you haven't tried it before, it's something you might want to look at. So let's talk here. Next steps, how we can help. Do your research on your audience. And this is steps for you, right? So do your research on your audience, know the talking points. We've talked about this, but have the content and the value that you're providing to each vertical, whoever you're targeting. Speak to them. Make them, get that aspirational side in there. Get the conversation off of price, get it to the results, right? Use value selling. We strongly recommend packaging your services, and these are not always low-cost services. We spend $2,000 a month with our CPA firm. We're in a package. It's a virtual CFO type of package. There's lots of companies willing to spend big dollars if they feel they're getting the value from the relationship. Make sure you understand proper negotiating, using silence, some other techniques we've talked about. Promote your services online, right? So The more information there is about you by the time the prospect is talking to you, most likely they're already sold and ready to buy. They're at that intent stage. So the stronger your digital presence, the better. And UPsychology. So this is a resource I strongly suggest anyone uses. And this is where I was talking about some different case studies. And this will go from premium beer versus Budweiser. And when you compare three beers and what people are actually willing to spend on certain products. And there's a bunch of research. So go to the Nick, KOLENDA.com, psychological hyphen pricing hyphen strategy. I think it's a great resource. I strongly recommend everyone read it. So it's something that, again, I circle back to at times. So I definitely recommend it. So let's talk about this. Questions. I think we have a few Q&A. We have time for, I think, 3. If you do have any questions, please visit accountingworkspro.com or call us at 1-800-442-2477, extension 4. Again, today's workshop was more a coaching type workshop. This is high level. Some of this might be, not that informative in the way that you might have only gotten a couple talking points from it. But I think as a group, we hear it a lot from our tax and accounting clients, their feel and fears of commodities. And we're just trying to give you guys a little more advantages when you feel more confident, get out there and get some higher rates. So I hope that you find this valuable. And Alexa, let's see if anyone's asked any questions.
Yeah, we have a few questions. The first one that I see is, how do you win a price war?
Well, you don't, right? So you win by getting out. That would be a good way to say it. But, so let's say you're negotiating with a prospect on a big monthly virtual, CFO type of service. And you think, hey, they're ready to sign the deal, but they mentioned they also are talking to another competitor, right? So it's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I thought we were going to work together. We're ready to go. You find out that they have quoted a lower price than you can possibly match. So, what's the example? The prospect then says, well, if you beat this price, you'll get the job. I will work with you. And, okay, so now you can get the job, but you're going to have to discount your price. So the question is, how do you respond? And as we've been talking about today, let's put price aside. If price was not an issue, and I'm saying you even say this to your client, if price was not an issue, do you like and trust us more than them? And then that's a question you can ask. Does our reputation results stand above theirs? Those two question or responses might already push you back where, they might already decide in their mind, you're right, I'm using you. But, if you think you are truly equal and the differentiator is price, I want you to go with the other firm. I don't want, I can't keep coming down in price. If you think that we're the same, go with it, save your money, right? I want you to save money. But, as I've said this before, we offer a premium solution to premium businesses. Those are the kind of people we like to look for. We're going to help bring your business to new heights and profit. So if you want to put the best solution, we want to be your partner. But if you're looking for the cheapest solution, please choose the other option. I think these talking points and kind of reversing the conversation will be very helpful. This is a good idea now. Silence. And see if the aggressive product negotiation stance changes, right? So with those type of responses, you might get to the results that you want already. You cannot devalue your services, right? So at the end of the day, you as a tax and accounting practice owner want to be more successful, and you're saying that to the same business. Hey, working with me, your goal is to be more, whether that be more financially savvy, changing the world, disrupting whatever you're doing. You want to be more successful, not saving a few bucks on the advice that will actually drive that better financial outcome. So that's kind of the way I deal with it. I think it's some good, savvy advice.
Great. Okay, so we have another question. How do I determine if bargaining is appropriate?
Bargaining is appropriate. When determining how to negotiate a business deal, so I always say take a long-term approach. So don't think just maybe in the bargaining side, maybe you can give a little bit of a discount. So when negotiating a service deal, tax accounting professionals need to shift their focus from closing the deal to thinking about how that partnership or other key outcomes might play out over the long term, right? So research consistently shows that when making decisions, we tend to focus on short-term considerations and discount the future in a way that we regret later, right? So what am I paying today? Not, oh my God, I made $400,000 more because I did a proper budgeting and profit first, analysis, right? So an example here is to offer an intro price to those that are bargaining hard. For example, And if you're doing a monthly accounting package, right, give them 25%, or not 25%, 20% is the magic number. You'll find that in some of the research. But give them 20% off the first 3 months of the monthly virtual accounting program. So let's say it was $1,500 a month, take a $300 off per month in the short term to help close the deal. And during this time, you're going to be able to build your trust in your process. The client's going to, respect your opinion more. They're going to feel more comfortable, and you're going to have a long-term client to boot. So I think that's a good way to handle the bargaining. So maybe a little bit of a short-term, loss, but this isn't on locking into this number for a long-term client. If you're keeping clients 7 to 10 years, you can do the math. It pays off pretty quickly.
Yep. So our last question is, when do I introduce price into the conversation?
So I'm going to be so back and forth here because there's a bunch of different strategies, and I wanted to share a couple thoughts. If you do any research or read any of the kind of the way top salespeople work, they will say, and this is, high performing reps bring up pricing at the beginning of the call to set their prospects' expectations. And again, near the end, so they can transition smoothly into the close, right? So they set the expectations. Now you're talking value, value, value. Now we're taking it from a conversation to an actual purchase. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. And I'll use a kind of a cheesy saying here, just like Fight Club, the first rule of pricing is you do not talk about pricing, right? So that's what we've been talking about the whole time. We're talking about value. And that kind of contradicts our value, price, and suggestions. But in reality, by showing other options, we are actually helping our customers decide without friction. And this comes into our package programming, right? So that kind of says, well, maybe it's okay to show pricing in your packages. And we've tried it both ways. We tested not having pricing on our programs and with pricing. And we have closed more conversion with the prices being fully transparent. So for us, it's been a much better deal. So, responding to price is hardwired into our brains. When we see something expensive, we know immediately without thinking, hey, that isn't for us. That's expensive, right? When we see something that we perceive as a deal, we buy more than we would probably use. And if you've ever been to a Costco, where you buy, 150, toilet paper rolls or whatever, but you'll have 12 toothpaste. So the point is, what we're saying is that is emotion, right? There's emotion in the negotiation, and in any deal that you're trying to do, you don't want to deal with emotion. So it's not your prospect's job to set pricing. An optimal price is one that is accepted, but not without some initial resistance, right? Meaning if you aren't getting some resistance now, you aren't charging enough. So the good, better, best pricing strategies that we've been talking about, this value packaging, whatever you want to call it, are everywhere. And what that does is the value pricing does for you, if the product comparison is made correctly, you can skew your average price upwards. So this comes into the psychology and doing some A/B testing and trying to figure out if if your best is really a high end and your middle is where you make maybe the best profit margin for the amount of work and set, you can differentiate the price so much that people kind of skew one way or the other and make it even more profitable. So talking about price along the way is great to align expectations and anticipate objections by removing this a private, what's this going to cost, right? That's the big worry. Okay, I've sold, but what is it going to cost? That is a risk. That's friction. So by using the good, better, and best price model, you are removing emotion and using human psychology so that the prospect is thinking, which package is best for me versus how much? And I think this is a huge takeaway from, everything we've been talking about in the last couple of workshops. So I hope that is a back and forth kind of wishy-washy response, but there's a couple different ways, techniques to go about it, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But the great thing about the internet is instant gratification. So you can test these things and get an idea of, what is the consumer really going towards. So I think that's about our time limit. So again, thank you very much for joining us on this workshop. We have a couple great topics in the queue. We'll get back more to marketing and digital marketing on the next ones, a little more on conversion, some things you can use, some takeaways that we've been seeing with other clients and benchmarking that we're doing. And we're also excited about 2.0 launching here soon. So we look forward to hearing some feedback from you and hope you find this information valuable. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.